Today is a special day for me. 34 years ago today, I was ordained to the priesthood by Bishop Garland up at St. Charles in Carthagena, Ohio, and it's a nice surprise to see some of my family members here to celebrate this anniversary with me. Anniversaries and changes in life kind of draw us into reflection mode. 12 years ago, I was assigned to shepherd the 3 downtown Catholic parishes, Emmanuel, St. Joseph, and Holy Trinity, and to work through the transition of moving from 3 separate pastors into one pastor. I recall addressing many concerns and fears that had arisen during this time of transition. And in response, I often drew upon the rich history of all 3 of our parishes, dating back the earliest here at Emmanuel to 1837. And how during these times of uncertainty throughout our history, God has always provided for our needs. God has cared for our parish families through the Civil War, the Russian flu, the Great Flood of 1913, World War I, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, World War II, the Korean conflict, Vietnam War, the economic stagnation of the 1970s, the savings and loan crisis of the 1980s, Y2K, the housing crisis, and most recently, the COVID pandemic. That's a lot of stuff, isn't it? God has never abandoned us. God is shepherding us today as he has in the past. And he is shepherding us as we begin a new identity as the St. Gaspar family of parishes, which we will begin July 1st, the end of this week. A common emotion that rears its head in times of uncertainty is fear. If I were to ask you how many kinds of fear could you come up with, what would you think of? 10? 20? I looked up a common list of fears, and there were 108 different kinds of fears. Fears like altophobia, which is a fear of heights, or arachnophobia, a fear of spiders, claustrophobia, a fear of confined spaces, xenophobia, a fear of strangers and foreigners. There's even a panophobia, which is a fear of everything. Fear is a powerful force. Now, there is a healthy fear that we learn as children, like not touching a hot surface, you're going to get burned, or not wandering off by yourself. This kind of fear offers protection. But there are also unhealthy fears that can paralyze us and keep us from living life fully, like the fear of failure, the fear of change, the fear of an uncertain future. Fear often believes the worst. It is faith, faith that believes that with God all things are possible. In our first reading today, we hear that the prophet Jeremiah has found himself in a difficult situation. He had every reason to fear for his life. Even though he was young and had a gentle heart, God had called the prophet Jeremiah to be a prophet of doom. He accused the people of God of turning away from the Lord and relying on political alliances instead of trusting that God would be with them. Jeremiah faithfully preached the message of impending doom given to him by God. But the devastation had not yet happened. And so he was being laughed at. He was beaten, threatened, and imprisoned. Despite these hardships, the prophet Jeremiah continued to trust in God, saying, "But the Lord is with me, like a mighty champion." Jeremiah did not let fear stop him from speaking the truth in love. We see a similar picture in our gospel today. Jesus is giving various instructions to his disciples. He is preparing them to go on mission. He warned them that they are being sent out like sheep among wolves, that they will be hauled into court and flogged. In other words, it was not going to be easy to continue their journey in faith. Despite these challenges, the disciples were told, "Do not be afraid." Jesus reassures them, and Jesus reassures us that we will be cared for, never abandoned. And he uses the image of a sparrow, a common bird, to make this point. In the eyes of the ancient world, a sparrow was inexpensive, of little value. Matthew has 2 sparrows being sold for 1 penny. And yet, Jesus says that none of them falls to the ground without your Father's knowledge. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. God, who has created you and I in his image and likeness, God even knows the number of our hairs on our head. He cherishes you more than many sparrows. Whenever you become aware of fear or worry entering your heart, let that be like your check engine light going off in your car. When that light comes on, you know your car needs some attention. So too, when worry and fear or a troubled heart stirs within you, it's a time to reevaluate your life of faith, because you're no longer trusting in Jesus. You're relying on yourself. Whatever unhealthy fear you hold in your heart today, whatever worry weighs you down, place it today at the feet of Jesus, upon the altar of God, and know that his constant gaze is upon you. Do not be afraid of sharing your faith and speaking the truth of the gospel to others. This is what we are called to do as disciples of Christ. We too may experience rejection, humiliation, and hardships because of our belief in Christ, but this should not keep you from proclaiming God's truth. My prayer for all of you is that you will be open to God's grace and not shy away from giving witness to the gospel. Claim the dignity that is yours as a child of God and say, "The Lord is with me, like a mighty champion. He upholds me, therefore I am unafraid."